So where you file will depend on where you operate. Also, where you file will depend on the type of protections and costs. So properly filing, you want to make sure that you're, of course, paying all fees. A lot of times individuals will pay the fees to get their LLC up and running, but neglect to pay the annual fee. And depending on when the LLC is formed, you may have to, within that window, turn around in the next couple of months and pay that annual fee. It may not be a whole year that you have, depending on when it is actually filed. They have two separate windows, the Secretary of State, and again, look at your respective state laws. But depending on if are you filing in October, are you filing in January, you may have to turn around and do an annual registration in April. So that is something that people don't do. And then they'll get their LLC and either won't file their annual registration within time, or don't file it at all. And they're thinking that, by just establishing it in the beginning, they can just continue to run as an LLC. And that is not the case. You have to make sure that you're paying all the fees. So one of the things you want to think about in properly forming is costs. What fees do you want to pay? I know California has one of the states that has high fees. You will pay LLC tax fees that are, I believe, $800 in addition to the LLC fees that you will pay for state registration. So you just have to know the different fees you may have to pay. So those are two things about proper formation: knowing that you are a separate legal entity, and then knowing where you actually need to file based on where you're operating. And if you have a choice on where you can, based on where you're operating, understanding the type of protections those states offer. Just having limited liability protection, certain states are a little weaker with affording those protections. Certain states, speaking of California is a weaker state when it comes to protecting assets. There are certain states where they're weaker when we're talking about something called a charging order, meaning how, creditors can come in and get what they feel they're owed from your company. Certain states are stronger in those protections, certain states are not. And the states that are not, of course, there's ways to deal with that, but we'll get more into that later. But you want to look at the protections in the state, depending on the business you're running and or the type of assets that you are trying to protect. So that is two major factors. Also, when you're forming, to stay aligned with proper formation, you have to make sure that your state allows you to use an LLC for your business structure. Certain states don't even allow for certain professions to register an LLC as the business entity for the type of profession they're involved in. Certain states may say, there's this profession, like myself as an attorney, as a professional. Some states may say you have to register as a PC, a professional company, or an LP, a limited partnership, or LLP, a limited liability partnership. So it just depends on the state. Make sure that you are picking the type of entity that you can register for the type of service that you actually provide. That is really huge, to run around in the business industry and not be properly formed or appropriately formed for the type of service that you're actually offering. When you file, again, you will look at each state's breakdown, but in general, most states will require you need a registered agent. The person that is actually filing, if it's you or someone doing on your behalf, is considered the incorporator. The incorporator can be someone that is like an attorney or anyone who's just taking, through authority, taking the initiative to establish this LLC. And a lot of times people think that because the incorporator, you're going to be listed, you're going to sign for filing, that is considered an owner. It's not. Just because you list someone's name down there, they list their name, doesn't mean they're an owner. They're an incorporator. and right after the business is actually formed, the incorporator can completely be dropped off and not engage in the business at all. Sometimes that comes in handy when you're looking at, privacy, because some states require whoever the members are of the LLC must be listed. Some states do not. And if the states that do, there's ways around that to maintain privacy, we'll get into later. But the states that do not require it, then to keep privacy, some individuals may decide to have an incorporator instead of having themselves do it. So they're not attached to the company publicly if privacy and amenity is something that is important to an individual. And if anonymity is, then having an incorporator other than yourself works. But I just want you to know that when you register, you have the incorporator whose name is listed, the one registering, and then you have a registered agent. And this may be one and the same individuals, or a registered agent can be a company. There are different agencies out there that just provides that particular service as being a registered agent. And it's important when choosing who the registered agent is, because that is who will get the communication.